Hey everyone, we're going to use the same textbook for our reading for today, except we're going to look at four different pages, continuing our lesson about how rocks form. So we've learned about minerals and rocks and the layers of the earth, and now this section is called How Rocks Form. So it says we're going to find out how they form and ways people use rocks to make things. Our academic vocabulary that we have seen before in Spanish and a couple of other texts in English are igneous rock, sedimentary rock, metamorphic rock, and the rock cycle. This is kind of great because we've seen all these before, and the reason why we're looking at a different text about the same topic is because if we were at school, we'd have plenty of time to read this text multiple times, to learn about it really to the core, but that's because we've got 6 hours every day to do a lot of work. And so now, since we've got our smaller lessons online 3 days a week, it's important to go back and look over it. So hopefully, after reading all of these different texts, we'll understand the topic and the content better. So there are three types of rocks: exploding volcanoes, flowing water, and heat and pressure inside the earth all form rocks. Rocks are grouped by how they form. There are three groups of rocks. First is igneous rock. Igneous rock is rock that was once melted but has cooled and hardened. Sedimentary rock forms from material that has settled into layers. The layers are squeezed together until they harden into rock. Metamorphic rock is igneous, sedimentary, or other metamorphic rock that has been changed by heat and pressure. So then down here we can see in this caption that it says, rivers carry sediment or pieces of rocks and soil. When a river slows down, it drops the sediment. Sediment builds up in layers at the bottom of the rivers, lakes, seas, and oceans. These layers are pressed and stuck together to form sedimentary rocks. Up here, a caption for this picture says, igneous rocks form from melted rock that has cooled and hardened. Some igneous rocks come from volcanoes. And then in this diagram here, we can see that it says once this entire mountain was made of granite. Because of heat and pressure, the granite is being changed to metamorphic rocks. Magma provides the heat for this process. The weight of the land above the rocks provides the pressure. So down here, we can see that it's starting with magma. The next layer is granite, which is igneous rock. Then above it is a layer called gneiss, which is metamorphic. Then that purple layer is schist, which is metamorphic. And then we've got hornfels, which is also metamorphic above it. So all those are changing, but as it says, it once was all granite. How rocks form and change. You know that there are three types of rocks: igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary. But did you know that each type can be changed into the other types? You do, because I found you that awesome graphic of the rock cycle earlier, right? This process of changing is called the rock cycle. The diagram shows how rocks can change. The arrows show what is happening to make the rocks change. They tell about the heat and pressure being applied to rocks. They also show how rocks break apart to form sediments. Use your finger to trace the changes that can happen to each type of rock. So we're going to flip to the next page where you can see the whole of the diagram and the rock cycle. So this diagram is obviously not perfect because I don't have the book right in front of me, but here you can see the whole diagram. So first, notice how we've got our three types of rocks. We have metamorphic rocks, and those are blue, we have igneous rocks here, and then we have sedimentary rocks. Now there's different colors of arrows that go back and forth because there are different ways that each type of rock can turn into another type of rock. So up here we can see that it says that metamorphic rocks can turn into the purple sedimentary rocks here by having wind and water breaking up metamorphic rocks to form sedimentary. So if we start metamorphic and wind and water break them up, they become sedimentary. So they kind of break down into smaller pieces like sediment, which when I think of sediment, I think of the stones and the rocks and the minerals at the bottom of like the rivers and lakes like it mentioned. Now, if you have a sedimentary rock and we want to go back to metamorphic, then they need to be put under heat and pressure. So here it says when sedimentary rocks are put under heat and pressure, They then are formed into metamorphic rocks. They change. Now, if we've got a sedimentary rock again, we'll start up here, and we want to form it into an igneous rock, it says they need to melt. So we're going to start with the sedimentary rocks, and they need to melt. And we know that to make things melt, we need to have a lot of heat. So that's how that would change into igneous rocks. And if we want a metamorphic rock to change into igneous rock, then they also must melt. So that lets us know that those igneous rocks are the ones that are really hot. They form from heat. That's kind of why it's red. We can put like a fire on here. Can you like my fire? I'll add some yellow and some orange, really make it burn. There we go. So basically, we can see a pattern there that if we want any type of rock, whether sedimentary or metamorphic, to change to igneous, we need to add heat and fire, right? So that's how those change. But then how can we change igneous rocks back to sedimentary or metamorphic? Well, it says here that to go to sedimentary, we need wind and water to break them up. So basically, that's what's also happening from metamorphic rocks, right? Up here, we need wind and water to break them up. So that wind and water break up different types of rocks to become sedimentary. Heat forms igneous rocks. And then to go back to metamorphic from igneous, here we need, once again, heat and pressure. So remember, heat and pressure forms metamorphic rocks. Wind and water form sedimentary rocks. And heat, melting, forms igneous rocks. That is how you can really break it down and understand a little bit better about the types of rocks. Now, don't forget to look at this diagram nicely when I'm not drawing on it. It's really interesting to see the type of rocks in each group of rocks. So over here in metamorphic, we can see the examples they give us. They're all really gorgeous. They're all very different though. So we can see here that marble, slate, and quartzite are all examples of metamorphic rocks. Heat and pressure can change metamorphic rocks into other metamorphic rocks. So that's really cool. And marble is another rock, just like granite, that is used for countertops often. So some of you might have metamorphic countertops in your homes. Sedimentary rocks up here, some examples we can see are red sandstone, limestone, and breccia. I was saying it wrong, breccia, right there. It's definitely interesting because if you look at that breccia, you can definitely see all those little sediments that have come together and formed that rock. Limestone is also very important in Indiana. It is one of our exports. So we are known to have limestone here in Indiana, and very close to my house is a huge rock quarry, actually multiple rock quarries that have big, huge holes in the ground where they harvest, it's not really harvesting, where they get that limestone. And then down here in our igneous rocks, if I erase my fire a little bit, I was really proud of that though, guys. I'm going to erase my fire here, and we can see that some examples of igneous rocks are obsidian, which we've heard of that before, right? We also have pumice, which is the one that has little tiny holes in it that you might use to like scrape all that like dead skin off your feet in the middle of summertime to look nice with sandals. And then here, check out this rock. I've never seen this before. It's called snowflake porphyry. I have to read down here how you pronounce it, so I knew. Porphyry. It says the igneous rocks can melt to form new igneous rocks. So that is really cool how they're all different, but look how beautiful those are. As we move on here, we're going to learn how people use rocks. So we've learned all about rocks and minerals and the different types of rocks, and then how rocks can change and the layers of the earth, but it's also important that there are many different ways that we use rocks to our advantage. So it says rocks are all around you. You see them all the time, but rocks are also in places you might not think of. Did you know that rocks help you play video games? The games use silicone chips, and silicone comes from rocks. Computers, satellites, and microwave ovens also use silicone chips. So we need to be so appreciative of rocks more than we ever knew because our technology is embedded with rocks. Colorful rocks are worn as jewelry. I showed you guys my necklace last week. I need to get those out and take pictures for you because I'd love to show those off. There's really pretty rocks. Roads are paved with rocks, and many buildings and statues are made of rocks. So it says, what are two uses of rocks? And then here it says metamorphic rocks, such as marble, are used to make statues. And like I mentioned, also countertops. And then over here it says the chips that run computers are made of silicone. Silicone comes from quartz, a very common mineral. Quartz is found in igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary rocks. So that is a very versatile rock to find, quartz. And finally, in our textbook, there's always that page that is the summary. So it says, here is the most important ideas that we've read today. There are 3 types of rocks. Igneous rocks form from melted rock that has cooled and hardened. Sedimentary rocks form from layers of sediment. Metamorphic rocks have been changed by heat and pressure. The rock cycle shows how one type of rock can be changed into another type of rock. And then just as review questions, we already have other questions that we're going to answer about the text, but you can check those out if you want to feel super smart and see how well you understood what we read today.